gentlemen, welcome back to another wild and woolly edition of the Daily Power Parsha. It is great to see you all. So we have a few very, I think, very important things to talk about today, and I am going to share those right now. Here, let me share my screen. Okay, you can see it right about now. Okay. We started yesterday talking about the second of the two Torah portions of this week, which is called Behar-Bechukotai, and the Torah talks about the bargain, the great covenant. So God says, if you follow my statutes and observe my commandments and perform them, then you're going to get all the blessings. So I want to share with you, we spoke about, yesterday we spoke about the notion of consequence, reward, physical reward for spiritual actions. That was yesterday. Today I want to mention, right at the top, that the Hebrew word for statutes, for statutes is chukosai. Behar-Bechukotai means in my statutes, but chukosai, that's the word of statutes. Because the two letters chok mean statute, like a law, not a statue, like, something like that, but a statute with a T, i.e. a law. I think I mentioned yesterday that there are different types of laws. The types of laws that we understand rationally. Using the language of the Talmud, there are laws that, even had Torah not been given, we probably would have figured it out eventually. Like the prohibition against murder, the prohibition against theft, the prohibition against other violations of other people's rights, etc. Yeah, we probably, human beings probably would have evolved to figure it out on their own. But then there are mitzvot that are uniquely Torah. When I say uniquely Torah, they don't make any sense. They're not rational laws. It's not like you would have come up with them. Otherwise, they're completely done because God said so in the Torah. For example, the laws of kashrut, the laws of kosher. Yeah, we might find rationales for it. Oh, kosher is healthy, it's clean. We have all sorts of ideas, but ultimately, kosher is super rational. We don't really know. The prohibition that I mentioned a few weeks ago, the prohibition of wearing or against wearing wool and linen together in a garment. Come on. That is not something. It might be a fashion faux pas. I don't know. I can't comment on that. But I will tell you that's the example of a chok, of a super rational decree. Not something that the rational mind would have come up with on its own, but something that is beyond rational thinking. The other example would be the laws of, like I said yesterday, the laws of purity, ritual purity and impurity. These are not laws that are governed by logic. These are super logic, or super rational laws. That's the simple meaning. But there's a deeper meaning of this Hebrew word, chok. Simply it means a decree, a statute, something that God says do it, and the mind says why, and God says don't ask why, just do it. But chok is also related to the Hebrew word chakika. Chakika means engraving. So the word chok means law or statute or decree, but it also means engraving, etching. So what is engraving? Let's talk about a classic example of engraving stone. So you have a stone. Donna, do you ever engrave stones in your work?
Yes, I do. I etch. I have, thin pieces of metal with etched designs and colors, plus also flat pieces of stone.
Nice.
Messages, inscribed.
Nice. Okay, good. So you know what we're talking about. What's the difference between ksiva and chakika? What's the difference between writing and engraving? So Kabbalah says like this. Writing is two separate entities. You have the piece of paper, and then you have the the pen or the quill, the ink, you have the second item. And what you do is you layer one on top of the other. So you have your paper, and on top of your paper you're dropping, essentially, or scraping ink on top of that surface. Whether it's paper or parchment or canvas, whatever surface you have, if you're writing or drawing or painting, the second entity. The letter, drawing or coloring, yeah? You have two entities, the surface and the ink. When it comes to engraving, you have one entity. All you have is the stone or the metal. And how are the letters then formed if you don't have a second item? It's by the hollow, it's by the empty space, the absence of that substance. That's what creates the image or the letters. There are two ways that you and I can connect with God. We can connect in a way that there's God and then there's us, two separate entities. We can connect by way of writing. And what that means is in a way of separation. There's God, there's me, and maybe we touch, maybe we don't. Even if we touch, it's still two entities. It's not one entity, it's still two entities. I'll give you an example. The Torah is written in a very unique way. When I say the Torah, I mean an actual Torah scroll that's used in synagogues. It's made of natural parchment, made from animal skins. So it's not paper, it's parchment. The parchment is scored with a thin blade, razor blade. It's scored with a ruler to create columns of straight lines. Above those lines is where the scribe will handwrite all of the letters of Torah. It's methodical, it's handwritten. The ink that's used is a special ink. You know, many inks bleed into the paper or bleed into the surface when you apply the ink to the surface. What do I mean by bleed? You drop the ink and it saturates inside the paper or the parchment. The ink of a Torah scroll is extremely unique in that it remains like a raised letter. It dries very quickly because the scribe is writing and writing and writing. You don't want to smudge with the hand because that'll ruin your Torah. So it dries instantly. Number one, it's specially formulated to dry instantly, and two, to remain above the surface. It doesn't bleed into the parchment. It remains above the surface. The benefit of that is, if you need to fix something, let's say a letter was written improperly, incorrectly. Every letter has to be written exactly the way the letter should be written. If there's even a deviation slightly here, there, or whatever, any direction, it's an invalid letter. So Torahs are checked constantly. They're read constantly and checked when they're read, but also sent to scribes to check. And of course, when writing it or after writing it, is checked over many times. What if an error is discovered? A scribe will take a little bit of a blade, once again, and scrape off the letter, revealing a pure background. If you had to erase it with a heavy eraser, you would erode the parchment, creating a hole, and you can't have a Torah. A Torah is holy, but not that type of holy. So you cannot have a hole in your parchment. That's not cool. So these are just some insights. The bottom line is, whenever you're writing or drawing or painting or coloring, whatever, you have two substances. The background, so to speak, and then the ink or the paint. And even if it does saturate, the bottom line is there's still two entities that are intertwined, but it's still two entities. So in our relationship with God, we can be like drawing, separate entities, or we can be engraved. We can be the engraved letters that the Torah is referring to here. What are engraved letters? Part and parcel of that material. You don't have two entities, you have one entity. You have the positive space and the negative space. You have the stone and the hollow. But it's even the hollow is the hollow of the stone. It's not a separate entity. It's part of that entity. The same thing is true in our lives. What the Torah is alluding to in the Kabbalistic imagination, as the way Kabbalah understands this verse, the Torah is telling us that it's not enough simply to follow God's statutes, but we are meant to become one with them. We are meant to unite with God and unite with God's will in such a way that it's not like I am doing God's will, but it's so intuitive, it's so inherent, it's so natural that it literally becomes part of the very fabric of our existence. We exist one with God, connect with God, not as two entities that have merged, but as one entity that has revealed itself. So that's a little bit of insight into the name of the second portion, which is Bechukotai, and the meaning of this. It's not simply observing the statutes, but doing them in a way where it's one with us. Now let's move on to today's reading. Okay, here's what I want to do. Here is what I want to do. We're going to talk about curses today. The Tochacha, the curses of the Torah. 49 curses are in today's reading. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. It's a very long reading. It's a very long reading. We're going to get there in a second. Okay, let me set this. Yesterday we spoke about the blessings. What's going to happen if we keep our end of the deal? What's going to happen if we keep our end of the covenant? And the Torah says you'll have the greatest blessings. You're going to have blessings of health and prosperity and safety and security. You're going to have the greatest blessings. And we spoke yesterday about the significance of those blessings. Okay, but we know blessings. Blessings, however it is, the bottom line is it's tremendous blessings. In today's reading, we have the opposite. The Torah tells us what happens if we don't keep our end of the bargain. What happens if we go against the covenant? And the Torah tells us that the result of that will be the opposite of blessings. Okay. So there are 49 curses, 49 elements of rebuke that are mentioned in the reading over here. So we're going to get to it in a moment. Give me just a quick moment here. All right. Let's do this together. Leviticus chapter 26, verse 10. You guys see that? Yeah? Thumbs up? Okay. Starts off well. You will eat old produce. It'll still be good. You will clear out the old from before the new. God says, I will place my dwelling in your midst. My spirit will not reject you. In other words, it's going to be good. I will walk among you and be your God, and you will be my people. Yeah, and then God concludes, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt, from being slaves to them, and I broke the pegs of your yoke and led you upright. Great. So far, so good. If we keep our end of the deal, the greatest blessings. And do not perform all these commandments, and not only are you not doing it, and if you despise my statutes and reject my ordinances, not performing any of my commandments, thereby breaking my covenant, then, God says in verse 16, I too will do the same to you. I will order upon you shock, consumption, fever, and diseases that cause hopeless longing and depression. You will sow your seed in vain, your enemies will eat it. I will set my attention against you, and you will be smitten before your enemies. Your enemies will rule over you, you will flee, but no one will be pursuing you. That means you'll run away out of fear, and no one's even chasing you, but that's how fearful you will be. And if you still don't listen, God says, I will add another 7 punishments. I will break the pride of your strength, make your skies of iron and your land like copper. It's not going to rain, it's not going to grow. Your strength will be expended in vain, your land will not yield its produce. More punishments. Verse 22. I will incite the wild beasts of the field against you. They will bereave you, destroy your livestock, diminish you. More punishments. I'll bring an army that avenges the avenging of a covenant. Incite the plague in your midst. Okay. And it goes on and on and on. 49 different curses. 49 different consequences for not listening to God. Now, we always read this 2 weeks before Shavuot. 2 weeks before the anniversary of the giving of the Torah. Why? So our tradition tells us that it's kind of like a bit of a deep clean. Right? You ever have one of these, what do they call them? Go to Arden's Garden. What are they called? Like, you do these detox things, like a detox. A cleanse. Good. A cleanse. Yeah. How does it taste? Maybe not so great, but that's why it's a cleanse, because it purges. It cleanses with fire or with whatever it is. It hurts sometimes. So our tradition tells us that we read these curses, these curses before Shavuot, not the week before, because we don't want to be too depressed, but 2 weeks before, in order to cleanse us, to inspire us to be cleansed. So what I want to do now is share the following. It's good to hear the good stuff, but it's also good to hear the areas that are room for improvement. I'm not suggesting, right, that, listen, I'm not a fire and brimstone type of guy. If you don't do it, then watch out. The Torah is doing that, right? The Torah is giving us kind of like a bit of a kick, saying, let's whip into shape. But what I'll say is, sometimes it's good to get motivated, however the motivation might come, whether positive or negative. You should know in synagogues, when this portion is being read in a synagogue, this year, of course, we don't have open services, but usually when the Torah is read, these verses are read, the reader will read it in a very quiet voice. So typically the reader of the Torah reads it in a loud voice, projecting throughout the synagogue, but reading these curses, the reader goes low. They tell a very heartbreaking story. After the Holocaust, I forget which rabbi who was one of the survivors, a Hasidic rabbi who was a Holocaust survivor, rebuilt his community, maybe in New York, maybe in Israel, I don't remember where, and the Torah reader was reading this portion and reading it in a very quiet tone. And he said in Yiddish, Hecher, which means louder. Hecher, Hecher, louder, louder. They were all wondering, you're supposed to read it quietly because we don't want to proclaim the curses, we want to read it on the down low. So he says, I want you to read it higher, so that Hashem knows, look, these are the curses. We just had a Holocaust. All of the curses have been fulfilled. Now it's time to bring Mashiach. So read it loud, because whatever's in here, however terrible it is, we've had it. We've just endured it. Now it's time to bring Mashiach. So that's another insight. But I want to land on this idea. The Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, writes in his series of discourses known as Torah R. He writes, these are Hasidic discourses on the Torah portions. He writes that there are two ways to understand the curses. One is as a curse, as a negative. If you don't, watch out, that's one way of understanding it. But there's a much deeper way of understanding it. And the deeper way of understanding it is that the curses are in fact blessings. That the curses are in fact the greatest blessings. And I know what you might be thinking, how can curses be blessings? This is a Kabbalistic idea. Kabbalah says that the greatest light is manifest in the most opaque way. Because it's such great light that it can't be manifest on planet Earth in an open way. It's too bright. And not only that, but it would be too accessible to negative forces. So therefore, the greatest light is smuggled inside what seems to be the worst curses. There's a story in the Talmud that the great Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, whose yahrzeit we just marked a few days ago, Lag BaOmer, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai once sent his son to get some blessings. And he went to go to a few rabbis to receive blessings. And when he was getting these blessings, I wanted to find the Talmud. Here we go. Moed Katan 9. Stay tuned. I'm going to pull up the Talmud so you can see it yourself. Talmud Moed Katan 9. Let's get some Sefaria going on here. Okay, I'm about to share my screen once again. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai sent his son to get blessings, and the end of the story is that it looked like anything but blessings. Okay, I'm going to pull this up, get to the right place, and hold on. Okay, here we go. All right, take a look. This is from Sefaria, which is a wonderful website. It basically has any Jewish text online, many of them translated. This is the Talmud, Tractate Moed Katan, 9b. Okay, it's right there at the top. You can see the reference. So here we go. I want to start maybe. Here we go. Let's start from here. Can you see where the hand or my cursor is over here on the screen? Yes, okay. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said to his son, these two people, Rabbi Yonatan, noble form. They are wise and learned individuals. Go to them so that they will bless you. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai sends his son to these two rabbis and says, go to them for a blessing. He went and found them in deep discussion, raising apparent contradictions between verses. I don't want to get into this part, but he goes to them and they're studying. They're in the middle of studying. Studying. Okay. Let's pick up the story. When Rabbi Yonatan ben Asmai and Rabbi Yehuda, son of converts, noticed Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's son, they said to him, they were in the middle of learning. He walks into their study hall, and they're having this major discussion of Torah, so he waits quietly. When they're done, they notice him. They said to him, what do you want here? In other words, why are you here? That sounds like hostile, but I'm sure it wasn't hostile. It's like, how can we help you? By the way, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's son was named Eliezer. So they said, what do you want? He said to them, Father told me, go to them so that they should bless you. They said to him as follows, listen to the blessing. May it be God's will that you should sow and not reap. Ay, such a blessing. Plant, but it should never grow. That you should bring in and not take out. You should invest and not get profit. That you should take out and not bring in. That your house should be destroyed and your lodging place should be inhabited. Right? Your house should be destroyed, and then wherever you are at, somebody else should take it over. That your table should become confused, and that you should not see a new year. Wow. And you call this blessings? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was a Kabbalist, the author of Zohar, says to his son Eliezer, go to these rabbis for a blessing. And they begin to give the worst curses, up into including that last one, that you should not see a new year. God forbid he should pass away before the next Rosh Hashanah. It's terrible. When he came back to his father, he said to him, not only did they not bless me, they even caused me pain with their negative words. They cursed me. His father said to him, what exactly did they say to you? He answered, they said to me such and such. He repeated their words. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said to his son, these are all blessings, uttered in a cryptic manner, and this is what they meant. Let me explain. They were mystics. He was a mystic. His son was confused. He didn't realize he was walking into a very cryptic and encoded conversation, which he exactly walked into. He says, let me decode the blessings. Let's go blow by blow. When they said that you should sow and not reap, they meant that you should bear sons and they should not die. In other words, you should plant, right, if you will, and not take out. Have children and not, God forbid, bury them. Their statement that you should bring in and not take out means that you should bring in brides for your sons. In other words, your son should get married, you should have daughters-in-law, and your son should not die, which would cause their wives to leave. In other words, your son should live and continue to live so that their wives don't need to remarry. When they said you should take out and not bring in, that meant that you should have daughters and their husbands should not die, which would cause your daughters to return to you. Again, you should take out, you should not get rid of your daughters, but marry off your daughters, let them go live with their husbands, and not bring them back in. In other words, they should stay with their husbands, happy and healthy and gesundheit. So your son should be healthy, and their wives should be healthy. Your daughters should be healthy, their husbands should be healthy. Let's continue. When they said that your house should be destroyed, and your lodging place should be inhabited, this also should be interpreted allegorically. As this world is compared to your lodging place, in other words, it's like a temporary, lodging place means temporary dwelling. So, this world is compared to your lodging place, and the world to come is compared to your house. As it is written, their inward thought, kirbam, is that their houses shall continue forever. And the sages said, do not read it as their inward thought, kirbam, rather read it as their graves. Which means, according to this reading, one's grave is considered his permanent house. This is not being morbid, although it sounds like it. What it's saying is that the grave, i.e. the experience of passing, i.e. the soul out of the body, that is the more permanent place of the person's soul. The time that the soul is inside the body is a very short amount of time. Our soul has a backstory and it has a continued story. We don't remember the backstory because we were caused to forget upon birth. We forgot the Torah and we forgot where we were before. The soul, which is consciousness, existed before, unencumbered by a body which kind of weighs it down. But we don't have memories of that because that's how God wants it. The soul will also continue long after we pass away, after the body finishes its mission. The soul continues to live. That is considered to be eternal life, i.e., as opposed to temporary 70, 80, 90, 100, 120 years, relatively short amount of time with the body. That's the lodging place. That's like a hotel-motel experience. The longer dwelling experience is the afterlife. So what that means is, so what does it mean here? Your house should be destroyed and your lodging place should be inhabited. I'm missing a little bit over here. For some reason, I'm missing a little bit how to read it into what they told him, what these rabbis told him. But it's something along the lines that maybe don't worry about your passing. Don't worry about physical life. Somebody will take you over on earth, so to speak. People, we take each other's places on earth, children, parents, etc. Don't worry about that because there is eternal life. Something like that, but I could be missing the full depth of this just on the fly. Okay, let's continue. When they said your table should become confused, right? It should be very busy. They meant that you should be blessed with many sons and daughters, so that there will be noise and confusion at your table, right? You should have a hectic household. There you go. When they said that you should not see a new year, they meant that your wife should not die, and as a result you should not have to marry another woman, about which it says, when a man has taken a new wife, he shall not go out to war, neither shall be he charged with any business. He shall be free at home for 1 year. The rule is that when a man gets married, so that person, this is specifically for the man. In ancient Jewish law, in ancient biblical times, the military was for men, age 20 to 60. It's a big span, I know, 20 to 60, but that's the eligible males, 20 to 60, were militarily eligible. But a person, a man, who's within that first year, you don't have to go to war. No draft for you. Why? Because you're meant to be with your wife. First year. I mean, you're always meant to be with your wife, but peace was to Eliezer, to the son of the Rav Shimon bar Yochai. The last thing they said was that you should not see a new year. You shouldn't have to reset a new year, i.e. a new year of marriage, i.e. your wife should live long and be healthy, and you shouldn't need to remarry and then have a new year, another year of Shana Rishona, first year of marriage. These are the blessings that the son of the Rashbi received from those two rabbis. And they're tremendous blessings. But they were obscured and shrouded in tremendous concealment. The Kabbalists, so the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, says, why was it so? Why couldn't these rabbis just give him the blessing straight up? Why make it confusing? What, they were trying to, what is this, like some sort of hazing ritual where you trick the young, the youngster into thinking he's getting cursed and really it's a blessing? What's going on? So the Alter Rebbe explains what I said before. The greatest blessings, they almost need to be manifest in a sneaky way because there's so much light. The other forces would get jealous of such light, and negativity might grab on to the light if it was so obvious. If you have $1 million in your house, $1 million, I would bet that you would not keep it in an open briefcase on your living room coffee table. Yeah? You're probably going to stuff it away somewhere, and maybe even in a cereal box, so that no one would even think to look there. I'm not saying to check my cereal boxes at home, because frankly, you will not find $1 million in my house. You know what? I shouldn't shortchange myself. Halavai, that should be the case. And maybe we all have such scenarios. But here's the point. You take the greatest light, and in order to protect it, you put it in the most obscure, the most hidden places to protect it. If you're trying to transport the most precious diamond in the world because you're on a secret mission somewhere, I'm sure we can think of your favorite spy thriller or whatever theme, and you need to smuggle it into a country, and you're flying international or whatever it is, you're going to put it in a very plain, a very nondescript, a very not like, hey, this is a clear bag for the diamond. Nope. You're going to put it in a very opaque, very obscured case so that no one would think to look inside. When they gave Eliezer, the son of the Rashbi, his blessings, they put the greatest blessings in the most concealed places so that no one would think, no negative forces would think to look there. But you got to know to look in there. You and I need to look in there. The Alter Rebbe says the curses of Bechukotai, the 49 curses of today's reading, what we're studying today in the Torah, they're the greatest blessings. You read them, it's the greatest curses. You got to know how to read it. You might need a Rashbi. You might need the author of the Zohar. You might need Kabbalah to tell you how to read it. But you got to know that there's another message in there. It's not so simple that God is saying, do the right thing, good. Don't do the right thing, gotcha. Not so simple. These are the greatest blessings of all. The greatest blessings, the greatest light, the greatest treasure is the one that comes in the package that is anonymous. It comes in the package that says cat food. Whatever. It's the one that comes in the anonymous packaging. It's got the greatest blessings. Okay, if you want to know, Chassidus and Kabbalah explain some of these curses, how they are in fact blessings. For example, it says, I'm going to do this very quickly because I know you may have to go. We'll just find this word 10. Here, verse 26. When I break for you the staff of bread, and 10 women will bake your bread in one oven, and they will bring back your bread by weight, and you will eat yet not be satisfied. That sounds like famine. 10 women will bake your bread in one oven. It means there's not going to be enough ovens, there's not enough food, there's not enough flour. The bread for 10 women, for 10 families, is going to be in one oven. That's scarcity. You will eat, and you will not be satisfied. Hunger. This is drought and hunger over here on an external level. But Kabbalah explains 10 women will bake your bread in one oven means all the 10 powers of the soul. The soul is feminine. The soul is always called in Hebrew feminine language. 10 women is the 10 powers of the soul. Will bake your bread in one oven means they will all 10 faculties of our soul will be united in the one oven toward God. Oneness. All the diversity of the human character will be pointed in one direction. And you will eat and not be satisfied, which means we'll study Torah and never be satisfied, always wanting more. My friends, you can read this as a curse, and you can read this as a blessing. All 49 curses of Bechukotai are 49 blessings. But as in every area of life, it all depends on perspective. If you look at the outside, it's terrible. If you look at the inside, it's the greatest blessing. Blessing of having a singular focus in life, having a singular purpose in life, 10 that are one, that are aligned with God, and eating but never being satisfied. Studying Torah, doing mitzvot, growing but never being satisfied with what we've already achieved, always striving for more. This is one verse that I've decoded for you. Now you can continue to study and decode the rest. You can ask me for sources. The sources are around. You can Google the sources, but these are the greatest blessings. So today we spoke about engraving, the power of engraving as opposed to writing. It's part and parcel. It's one with the stone itself. So too we are meant to be one with Torah, one with mitzvot, one with God, not two separate entities that are kind of fraternizing, but one. That's the first point. The next point I talked about the blessings and the curses, and the final idea was the secret of the curses is, as in the story from the Talmud with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son, the secret of the curses is that they are in fact the greatest blessings, the greatest light that comes down in the most confounding of places. Okay, hope this makes sense. Yes, made sense? Good. You should know there's a lot of secrets in Torah. One by one we're revealing them. It's a good thing. And again, continue to study, and you will be amazed by the depth that is within Torah. Okay, good. Have a great day, everybody. I don't want to hold you too much longer.